Good morning, Title I coordinators. Thank you for joining us for the January Title I District webinar. I'm Erin Sudduth, the branch manager of the Title I Part A Support and Improvement branch, and with me I have...
Hello, I'm David Malonte, one of the assistant directors in the Division of School and Program Improvement.
Hey, I think everybody has already taken care of their microphones and their cameras, so we appreciate that. As always, if you want to submit any questions or comments during the webinar, if you're on Teams, you can put those in the chat, or you can use the raise hand feature and unmute. Otherwise, you can email those to me at erin.sudduth@education.ky.gov. And of course, we are recording this webinar, and it'll be posted to our webpage probably later today or tomorrow. The recording of the December webinar is available on the Title I Documents and Resources webpage. And last month, we of course had some usual announcements and reminders, and our main focus was preparing for the tentative census poverty and hold harmless data to come out. And today, again, usual announcements and reminders. Then I have some exciting news to share with you about the new Title I Part A for Districts online course. And our main focus is going to be on equitable services for participating private school students. Specifically, we're going to look at the difference between the students who generate the funds and the students who are eligible to receive services. We're also going to discuss the notification of the intent to participate and the declaration of participation and how those two things are different. And finally, we'll discuss how to document that private schools have been notified. Our first announcement is just a reminder that registration is still open for the 2026 National ESEA Conference. That is February 10th through 12th, and it is in Denver, Colorado. You can attend in person or virtually, but of course that date is fast approaching, so there's not much time left to sign up if you want to attend. Our next announcement, I just mentioned a minute ago, the tentative census poverty and hold harmless information in our December webinar. That information is now available on our website. Some people have been asking about that. It is now posted, and I'll be sending out an email directly to coordinators this morning as well. So just a couple reminders about that information. The data in there can be used for planning purposes for the 26-27 school year. Please keep in mind that all of those numbers in there are tentative. They are subject to change. If you think there are like statistical errors with that information, you need to contact the SAPI branch at the U.S. Census Bureau for information on how to challenge the data. That is not something that we at KDE can do. The period to submit any challenges to the data is March 27th. And another quick reminder is that that information, I'm sorry, I have to cough just a sec. Sorry about that. That information is not going to compare directly with the information that you use to gather poverty in your district, direct certification, free and reduced price lunch data, and things like that. As we talked about in the December webinar, that data comes from census information, lots of different estimates and formulas and things. So there's nothing that you or we can pull to compare that to. Just a couple reminders about our current year's funds, 310M. We want to make sure that we're on track to have at least 85% of those funds obligated by September 30th, so we don't need a carryover waiver. If you are just dividing that 85% equally across the first 15 months of the grant, that comes out to about 5.5% being obligated each month. So for the end of January, that would put us right below 40% obligated. Of course, if you are a little below or a little above that, nothing to worry about there. If you are significantly below that, you might want to meet with your finance officer just to talk about how things are going, make sure that you don't need to make any changes. You want to be on track to meet that 85% requirement. And of course, remember that you are able to use those funds for allowable and approved expenditures that date back to July 1st of 2025. These are our 3 open projects that we have right now. The next approaching deadline will be for those Project 310K funds. The period of award, we did get an extension on that. It's going to end June 30th, 2026, which on the one hand feels very far away, and on the other hand will be here before you know it, I'm sure. So check with your finance officer just to make sure that you are on track to meet all of these deadlines. And as you're closing out open projects, be sure to go back and do a final alignment between GMAP and EERP. If you've been spending in line with the approved application and doing periodic alignment checks, hopefully there's not going to be that much to fix. Remember that KDE does recommend comparing GMAP and EERP and checking for alignment on at least a quarterly basis. Your district may choose to do that more often or less often, whatever works for you. But this just helps ensure a couple of things. First is that funds are being spent timely and they're being spent in line with the approved application. And finally, that things like the rank and serve requirements are being met. Those are all really important. The January newsletter is also up on the web page. We had information about hold harmless rates, some reminders about semi-annual certification for staff paid with Title I funds, a reminder about the spend down of the current year's funds, an announcement regarding a new resource that is available on our foster care webpage. Our principal's perspective was about the spend down of parent and family engagement funds. That's a somewhat common finding we see in monitoring. Those funds are supposed to be spent during the fiscal year in which they were reserved. So we really want to make sure that you are spending those funds each year. And then, of course, we had our usual recurring articles there. Just a reminder, if you or anybody else in the district are not currently receiving the newsletter emails, just let me know and I will get you added to the subscriber list. In terms of what we need to be working on in January, up first, of course, we're going to use that hold harmless information to start planning for the upcoming school year. If you haven't already done so, go ahead and start thinking about a plan and a timeline for working with the other federal programs in your district to coordinate the consolidated application for next year so that once it opens, you are ready to go. And of course, contact private school officials to go ahead and determine if they want to participate, get that consultation meeting on the calendar, and again, just plan for the upcoming school year. All right, back in September, I announced the Title I Part A for Schools course in the new Kentucky Learning Hub. And I mentioned at that time that I was working on a similar course for district level staff as well. So I'm very excited to announce that the Title I Part A for Districts course is now available in the Kentucky Learning Hub. This course is self-paced and it was designed with district Title I coordinators and other district level staff who work with Title I in mind. It provides an in-depth look at all of the program requirements. And this course is going to be replacing the new Title I coordinator training webinar that's been posted on our webpage for the past few years. The course contains 8 modules consisting of written content and recorded videos. Those videos are anywhere from 3 to 15 minutes in length. Each module contains a 5 to 10 question quiz to test your knowledge of the content. And at the end of each module, there's something that I called a pulse check, just with some guiding questions and key takeaways for that section. Now, for those of you who have completed or are in the process of completing that Title I Part A for Schools course, there is going to be some information included in both courses, mainly in the school programs module where it talks about the different types of programs that can be operated at schools. However, the district course is going to go deeper and it's going to highlight the things a district coordinator needs to know in order to support schools in meeting those requirements. So some of it may look similar, but there are differences there. Now, each module must be completed in order, in the order that they're in there. You can't move on to the next section without completing the previous one. And on completion, participants will receive a certificate of completion and 6 hours of ELA credit. So to enroll in the course, you're just going to want to visit the Kentucky Learning Hub, and that's linked on the previous slide. You'll go to the course catalog and look for Title I Part A for Districts. You'll just click on the Enroll button, And I encourage you to enroll in this course to learn more and share it with others who will benefit from the information. The end of the course does include a brief anonymous survey, as does the Title I for Schools course. Please complete that and let me know your thoughts about the course. And of course, feel free to send any feedback directly to me as well. Just like our webinars and our newsletters and all of our resources, I want to make sure that these online courses meet your needs. All right, moving on to our main topic today, which is equitable services. So the Every Student Succeeds Act requires districts to annually offer equitable participation in Title I Part A services to each private school that has children from participating Title I Part A attendance areas. So I want to emphasize a few things. First is that private schools are eligible to receive services, not funds. So the district retains control of the program and all the associated funds. Services may include materials and devices, reasonable costs related to professional development, etc. And when we say that the private school doesn't receive funds, what we're basically saying is that the district doesn't just write a check and hand it over to the private school. The district is responsible for hiring the staff, purchasing materials, etc., to support the identified student need at that school. And another thing to keep in mind is that just buying materials and supplies for a private school does not constitute a Title I program. There need to be some actual services there. Now, the next part is unique to Title I Part A. If a private school student is from a low-income family and would otherwise attend a Title I school in the district, but instead attends a private school outside of the district, those generated funds follow that student to the school outside the district. For all the other title programs, services can only be provided to private schools within the district's geographic boundaries. But in this case, the district in which the child resides is responsible for providing those services. And finally, of course, homeschools are treated as private schools in Kentucky, so there is a chance that you have some homeschools in your district that are eligible for Title I services. The students that generate funds for private schools may not be the same students who are eligible to receive services. So we're going to compare those. And first, we're going to look at these students who generate the funds. In order to generate funds, a private school student must first reside in a participating Title I public school attendance area within the district. So this means that if the student were to attend the public school based on where they live, they would be attending a school served by Title I. And secondly, the student must come from a low-income family. So if there are no students from low-income families attending that private school, no funds are going to be generated for services. The number of low-income students residing in a participating Title I public school attendance area and attending participating private schools is documented on the school eligibility page in GMAP. And GMAP is going to automatically calculate the equitable share of funds based on that information. So moving on to the students who are eligible for services. Of course, obviously, they have to attend a private school that has generated funds for services and is participating in the program. The next criterion is the same as the other group. The student would otherwise attend a Title I school within the district. And then the last criterion is that the student has been identified as most at risk of failing to meet state academic achievement standards based on multiple educationally related criteria. Some examples of that kind of criteria include grades, test scores, teacher referrals, and recommendations, etc. And notice that low income status does not automatically qualify a student for services, nor is it a requirement to receive services. There may be some overlap there, but there also may not be. So let's look at an example of students who generate funds versus students who are eligible for services. So we have a private school that is located in District A, and it has an enrollment of 690 students. So of those 690 students, we've got 350 who live within District A, where the private school is. We've got another 290 who live in District B, and then 50 who live in District C. So there's a possibility that all of those districts could be providing services to students at the private school. Now, looking at the number of students from low-income families who would otherwise attend a Title I school, we have 65 of the students from District A, 24 of the students from District B, and none of the students from District C from low-income families. So who generates funds for this private school? The 89 students who are from District A and District B and come from low-income families are going to be the ones generating funds for services. No funds are going to be generated by students from District C because there are no low-income students who would otherwise attend a Title I school from that district. Finally, we look at the number of students from each district who would otherwise attend a Title I school. If these students weren't attending a private school, all 350 students in District A would be attending a Title I school. 225 of the students would be attending a Title I school in District B, and 35 of the students would be attending a Title I school in District C. So this is the information that we're going to use to determine who is eligible to receive Title I services. The district and the private school are going to work together to identify those most academically at-risk students who would otherwise attend a Title I school in districts A or B. And those are going to be the students who are eligible for services. So all of the students from District A would attend a Title I school, which means that any of them are eligible for services. Now, when it comes to the District B population, only 225 of those 290 students would attend a Title I school. So the 65 students who would not be at a Title I school in District B, they're not going to be eligible for services. And then finally, we have District C. Now, they do have 35 students who would otherwise attend a Title I school, but none of them are eligible for Title I services. Why? Remember, that is because none of the District C students are from low-income families, so no funds were generated for services for any District C students. And as I mentioned a minute ago, the first factor in being eligible for services is that the private school has generated funds. If no funds are generated for services, services can't be provided. This may come up in the early stages of the consultation process. So a private school or a homeschool may indicate an interest in participating, but then upon further analysis of data, you determine that they don't have any low-income students that generate funds, and therefore they cannot participate. Now, of course, you still reach out to that school every year in case something changes, but if no funds are generated, no services can be provided. Moving on to the notification of intent to participate. So every year, every school year, this is usually late winter or early spring, the district must contact officials from all private schools serving students in participating school attendance areas. And again, for Title I Part A, this is within or outside district boundaries. We have a sample letter of notification and participation survey on our Documents and Resources webpage in our sample documents folder, but you are not required to use those. And a lot of times you'll hear this letter referred to as notification of participation or notification of intent to participate. The district may set a reasonable deadline, taking into consideration private school schedules for private schools to indicate their intent to participate. You want to be sure to provide clear and sufficient notice of the deadline and identify potential consequences for not meeting the deadline. An example of a consequence would be eligible students not having the opportunity to receive services. And we occasionally hear from districts about a private school taking a really long time to decide if they want to participate, changing their mind later in the year, etc. So by clearly communicating that deadline, you can eliminate some of those potential complications in the future. Now, districts are not required to submit the completed intent to participate forms to KDE. If a private school chooses to participate, the number of qualifying students is going to be entered into the GMAP school eligibility page, as I mentioned before, and that's so that equitable share of funds can be calculated. So the notification of the intent to participate is specific to Title I Part A. It is not the same thing as the declaration of participation. It can be confusing because those names are very similar. We did not name them, so sorry about that. The declaration of participation applies to Title II Part A, Title IV Part A, sorry, I skipped Title III, didn't I? Title III, Title IV Part A, and IDEA B. The Declaration of Participation is used to identify the number of students enrolled in private, nonprofit, and home schools within each district's boundaries and participate in federal programs. Private school membership data directly impacts the per pupil dollar amount allocated to districts for Title III and IDEA-B. So the declaration of participation is completed in GMAP. That's going to be in the application supplements section. Declaration of participation data for school year 26-27 is due on February 1st. So you probably already have that completed. A frequently asked question that we receive is, can the notification of participation and the declaration of participation be sent together? And the answer is yes. But remember that the Title I notification is going to apply to private schools within the district's boundaries and outside of the district boundaries. So if the district has students attending a private school outside its boundaries, you're just going to want to make sure that you only send it the Title I notification of participation and not the declaration of participation. And there is additional information about the declaration on KDE's webpage. In terms of documenting this notification, the method that is used to notify private schools is at the district's discretion. However, we do want to make sure that it is documented so you can demonstrate that you are meeting those requirements. In the event that the district is selected for monitoring, KDE will ask to see dated communication inviting private schools to participate in services. The first common method of documentation, of course, is the letter itself, and it should be dated. Sometimes we also see a photo of all of the stamped envelopes prior to them being sent out. Again, not required. That's just something that a lot of districts choose to do. Some districts choose to send the notification using certified mail. However, that's not required by ESSA or by KDE, and that can start to get a little bit expensive. So that's just something the district can determine at their discretion. Notifications can also be sent via email, in which case the sent email serves as documentation. You can send it with or without a read receipt. However, a read receipt would be an easy way to document that the email was received and opened by the recipient. You might also request that the private school respond to the email, or maybe complete a little online survey, just a quick yes or no question indicating that yes, they did receive the notification. If anyone has any other ideas of ways that they document this, that this notification has been sent, feel free to put those in the chat if you'd like. So for the declaration of participation, districts are going to receive notification from KDE when it opens in GMAP, and there will be an associated deadline. Just as I mentioned a minute ago, for this year, it's February 1st. Now, there's not a set deadline associated with the Title I notification of participation. I already mentioned that KDE does recommend this occur in the winter or early spring, usually between January and March. That's also the timeline that you will see in our coordinator's year at a glance, but you're not legally bound by that timeline. The important thing is that the private school has had time to express their interest to participate, the consultation meeting has occurred, and the district has time to plan the program before the beginning of the next school year when services are set to begin. So when you kind of work backwards, it pushes you back to about this time frame. Consider what works best for your district depending on your workload, the number of private schools that you contact. For those of you with a lot of private schools, you may want to send out the notifications even a little bit earlier, maybe in December or early January, just to ensure that there's plenty of time to set up all of those different consultation meetings with multiple participating schools. For our districts with a smaller number of private schools, you may be able to wait until February or March to send out that notification. And as I mentioned a moment ago, again, some districts prefer to send both the notification and the declaration together, but it is not required. And if you do that, just make sure that you only send the Title I one to the outside districts. You don't send them the declaration of participation. So that is going to wrap up our information about contacting schools about participating in Title I for the upcoming school year. So if you have any questions and you want to put those in the chat or send those over in an email, you can do that now. And while people are thinking if they have a question, I'll go ahead and let you know that our next webinar is Thursday, February 26th at 10 a.m. So mark your calendar for that. We also have all of our other webinars for the rest of 2026 on the slide. And as I remind you guys every month, we always want to hear your feedback about what you'd like to see in these webinars and newsletters and resources. So if you want to send that feedback anonymously, you can do that with our webinar feedback survey on the slide. It's also linked in the email that I sent you earlier. And of course, you can send feedback to your consultant or to me as well. After the December webinar, I did receive a couple submissions. A couple were just expressing appreciation for what we've been doing so far. So thank you for that. And there was a suggestion for a GMAP training. So I just wanted to remind everyone that we do have the GMAP training video series posted on our Documents and Resources webpage. And that series includes a separate video for each page of the application, walking you through how to complete the page. We also have the help pages within GMAP that you can refer to. I will say that it's been a few years since those GMAP videos were recorded, so they are probably due for an update. So I'll get on that. If you have any suggestions for those videos when they get updated, or if there's something that you think I should add, just let me know and I'll try to work that in. And to whomever made the request in the survey about the GMAP training, please reach out if you want to discuss that further so I can make sure that whatever I come up with is going to meet your needs. Okay, so we do have some questions in here. Okay. So the Title I notification goes out to all homeschool families plus any private schools that may be within driving distance to see if they have any students who live within our district that may be eligible. No need to apologize for being new. There's a lot to get straight with Title I, so it's totally understandable. Yeah, the Title I notification is going to go out to any private schools or homeschools within your district and possibly private schools outside of your district that have your students attending them. The non-regulatory guidance does mention that, you know, sometimes it might not be possible for the district to know every single private school, especially if it's outside their boundaries, that might have their students. So the guidance does make a recommendation for private schools if they're interested in participating and they think they have some students from that district to reach out and make sure that the district knows that. Has there ever been a face-to-face training? As far as GMAP, no. We have had face-to-face Title I trainings way back pre-COVID, of course, and then those were kind of replaced by that new coordinator training, which is now being replaced by the Title I Part A for Districts online course. And we do not have to send that via certified mail. No, you do not. If your district wants to, you can. But as I said before, we've heard from some people that that does get very expensive, especially with a lot of homeschools. So that is totally at your discretion. All right, those are good questions. I'm going to check over, see if any have come in on the email. Okay, nothing on the email right now. All right. So if you think of any more questions and you want to send those to your consultant or to me, feel free to do that. Also, be on the lookout here shortly for that email about the updated census, poverty, and hold harmless information. Make sure that you review that carefully. There's also, I think I mentioned it last month, there's a column we add on that document to show you your district's final poverty percentage from the 25-26 school year. That's just for comparison purposes. But I do recommend kind of starting to track that and look at that and see, is your district trending up? Is it trending down based on that census data? So that'll kind of give you some ideas as far as future planning. All right, thank you all for joining us today, and we will see you in February. Everybody stay warm.